What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones. Our guy, Jovan Alford, does a great job. Content producer, Sporting News. Check him out on Twitter at Jovan10, our XFL. He might now be our XF. We don't know what's in the water. Our XFL guru and Total Sports Live as well. Jovan, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good. I don't claim to be an XFL expert.
There
I'm
you
okay,
go.
but if you give me expert, then I'm gonna roll with it.
How'd you do with the games over the weekend?
2-2. Came back down to reality a little bit. Almost thought we had a cover in the Vipers Sea Dragons game, but Sea Vipers gave up a 12-point lead because in the XFL, like I said in last week's show, in the XFL, double-digit leads, last 2 minutes of the game, anything and everything can happen with the 1.2, 2.3 point conversions. Then with not the onside kick, but the 4th and 15, it leaves a lot out there. So kind of messed up, kind of feeling a little same type of way that we didn't get that cover. But outside of that, we'll take 2-2. Anytime we can split even, we'll take it.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. I mean, if you got to pay a little juice here on the loss, that's not a big deal. But you're right. I want to get into a little bit with the quarterback issue in the NFL because we saw Daniel Jones just get the bag. We saw what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. Carr goes to the Saints. Geno back with Seattle. You got Aaron Rodgers flowing out there potentially with the Jets in the landing spot. I tweeted this out and, well, a couple of things. I think the giant move with Jones, when you kind of break down the contract, I think we all get so enamored with the numbers as a whole when it's all about the guaranteed money and the fact that it's 82 million guaranteed at signing and they basically have an out after 2 years. They were able to tag Saquon. I thought the Giants did a very good job because they've shown now, okay, we believe in him, but you've got 2 years to really make us believe in you, or we're going to go in a different direction. So I have no issue whatsoever with the contract. I'm happy they got it done, but it's funny, man, because, you know, you start to see those dollars. Now, all of a sudden, we look right in our backyard, Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles. Now, granted, wasn't a high draft pick, but still, he's got to be thinking, you know what? I might get the bag here. You know, I was perennial MVP caliber player, and here we go. Went to the Super Bowl, outperformed Patrick Mahomes. So is this just a question of, you know, quarterbacks in the NFL, we always overpay for them? I mean, do you look at Jones's contract and say, oh, this is ridiculous?
No, not. I don't see that ridiculous, especially when you see the average annual salary and the quarterbacks that he's kind of like bracketed in between. I think he's bracketed in between Prescott and Stafford. So that's kind of the range. You can say he is. Obviously, Stafford's the outlier because he has the one Super Bowl ring, but Prescott him and Daniel Jones kind of in the same position as quarterbacks, you know, in terms of playoff appearance, getting to the playoffs last year. I mean, this past season, you know, leading their teams to the postseason. So it's not a bad for, you know, Jones. And like you said, the Giants did a great job, you know, with the deal where, like you said, they don't hamstring themselves to like, we're with you lockstep all 4 years. We'll give you half the money guaranteed, right. Like you said, and everybody gets caught up on the fake number, but the real number's in the guaranteed money. And like you said, they only stayed with them for 2 years. So, hey, 2 years doesn't work out, we can get out of it and still have some flexibility. So I think it was good there. And I think for the Eagles, you know, obviously you're thinking probably for Hurts, maybe somewhere in the land between 45, 50 million likely for him. I mean, Kyler Murray got 46 million and he's way surpassed Kyler Murray territory in my opinion in terms of,
and he got 103 million guaranteed.
Yeah, so if you're Hurts's, you know, people, you probably want to get to that 110, 120 guaranteed and, you know, see where it goes. And I think obviously Howie will do his thing on his end to make sure that it's financially smart for the franchise to try to make some maneuvers, and probably will explain to him as well, like, hey, we're going to give you what you want, and we're going to make sure that we do everything possible to get what you need to, you know, succeed.
Yep. Wilson 124 guaranteed, Murray 103, Watson 230. which you're like, you got to be kidding me. Mahomes only 63 million guaranteed. That contract looks like it's a genius contract. I still think in 2 years, the Giants are going to look at the Jones contract and say, this is a very good contract. Allen, 100, which kind of leads me into this, the whole, what's going to go on with Aaron Rodgers. The Rams in Denver basically gave up big hauls, Stafford and Russell Wilson, respectively. So how much of this buzz right now with Rodgers going to the Jets, do you think it's legit? Do you think this is the Packers are just done with Rodgers and they want to turn the page and go to Love? And then if you're Rodgers, you might be thinking to yourself, your best shot to win is in the NFC. I mean, the AFC, you got to go through Buffalo. You've got to go through
Cincinnati,
Kansas City, Cincinnati. Thank you. Yeah, you got to go through
your own division. Yeah, and like I said, in the East, you still got the Patriots. Even though they're not the Patriots of old, you still got to compete with them. The Dolphins, even though the quarterback position is still in flux, but they have playmakers that could give you trouble. So, yeah, it's a tough spot. I do think that the rumors of him and the smoke that we're seeing about him going to the Jets, I think it is real, especially with Derek Carr going to the Saints. It kind of leaves the Jets in a position where they might feel like it is their best shot, and the Packers probably feel like it's time to move on, right? Rodgers wasn't great last year, with the rookies. You would think that a quarterback of his caliber raises those guys' levels to another extreme, and it wasn't like that at all. And for the Packers, I think you do want to move on, just because, as some people pointed out, you have to make a financial decision on Jordan Love very soon too. So you have to see what you have in them. Now, granted, what we've seen is bits and pieces. We don't know, right? It's a very wide open thing. However, if you do like what you see, man, you got to think about, he's going to be continuing to develop and grow with young pieces around him, right? Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. You still have, Aaron Jones. You still have AJ Dillon. It's not a bad team. Now, will they drop them in the class of the NFC North? Likely a little bit, because Rodgers still has some cachet if he was still there. So I think for the Packers, you definitely do want to see. And if you're the Jets, you got to go for it, because can you really go back out there next season in a quarterback carousel where we're talking Wilson, Mike White, quarterback C, quarterback D, quarterback E, keep on rotating guys.
Brissett, Stidham, and that sample size you're talking about regarding Love, you're right. That's exactly what it is. It's a small sample size, but I think they're just ready to just turn the page on Rodgers. And I think a lot of it has to be the level of players dropped off. I mean, come on, man, you can't beat Detroit last game of the season to get in the playoffs. That's on you if you want to be considered an all-time great, which he still is. But Father Time catches up to everyone. And I also just think it's the theatrics, the drama, the goofiness, right? The wanting to hold the franchise hostage. And what happens is that domino now resonates throughout the rest of these teams in the NFL, because think about this. What happens if he decides to retire? Well, the Jets put all their eggs in Rodgers' basket. Now you turn around. See, this is, and I tweeted this, and I know you saw because you retweeted it. Explain to me how you have teams coming out when we saw what Baltimore does with Lamar Jackson, okay? And with the tag right now. So he can't talk to Miami potentially until after the draft. Now, we know Miami doesn't have a first-round draft pick because of the tampering.
Right.
So when you have that non-exclusive tag, I matched the offer, you got to give up 2 number 1 draft picks. Okay, fine. First-round draft picks, I should say. Washington, Miami, Atlanta, Carolina. It seems like they've all come out of the woodwork, and they basically said, we're not interested. And it strikes me as, well, why are you saying that now? Is it because they believe he's damaged goods, he's injury prone, or do they believe that Lamar Jackson is so hell-bent on getting that Deshaun Watson contract where every single friggin' penny has to be guaranteed? And the owners right now say, you know what? Absolutely not, man. We're squashing the notion of fully guaranteed contracts in the NFL when it comes to the quarterback position.
Oh yeah, 100%. I definitely think is the latter, right? Because if he wasn't looking for, and honestly, I don't blame him for looking for that amount, because he can make the claim like, "Hey, I wasn't the one getting in trouble off the field. Even though I've had some injuries, I
Yeah.
was the former league MVP. Like he has some cachet where he could say, and he also could say, hey, he's had DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller. What have I had?
Right.
To be successful, and I still was able to be successful. So I think it's definitely the latter, right? That fully guaranteed contract, I think, is holding it up, because any of those teams would be foolish not to take them, right? Like if you're
Make a
Carolina,
call. But why are you going to
yeah.
publicly come out and say you're not interested in them? Because
Oh yeah, it like you said, it's like the owners banding together saying, "Nah, we're not gonna go down this road." Even though we did see a report about the Raiders saying they're leaving all quarterback options open,
but
including
they don't.
Lamar. Now
They can't
that's a
afford.
team that I think could do it, right? If they could
But
afford them.
yeah, they don't have any liquidity, so they can't do it. I understand Lamar Jackson has no agent, and I think this is where it's going to hurt him, because an
Yes.
agent are incentivized. They can
Mm-hmm.
talk raw numbers. They can break it down. All you can basically do is make your pitch and say the film doesn't lie. Turn on the games. How about the Colts? Would the Colts trade? What are they, number 4?
4 or 5, I
I
think.
think they're 4th. I think they have the 4th pick in the draft. Would you give up that for another pick, and then probably sign him to a long-term deal for Lamar Jackson?
I mean, if you're the Colts and Bryce Young is off the board, even though I like CJ Stroud and also like Anthony Richardson in this draft class, if Lamar is there, you got to do it, right? Because you look at the division that you're in, it's a very winnable division. Like it's very winnable if you add a guy like Lamar Jackson to that team. He behind a solid offensive line who have a amazing running back on his side. He'll have a solid wide receiver in Michael Pittman, and he'll have a coordinator in, head coach now, in Shane Steichen, who's had a quarterback in a similar mold in Jalen Hurts, where he was able to have success with him, and he could probably duplicate the same success with Lamar. And you would think Irsay wouldn't be afraid to make that move, and he probably wouldn't be afraid to go get him the pieces that he needs to be, to succeed. So if I'm the Colts, I highly consider it, because that division's there for you. Tennessee's not a competitor. Houston is still some years away.
Yep.
Yeah, Houston is still sometimes away, and then Jacksonville, they're getting there, but again,
it's right there for them. You're right. Jacksonville's on the rise. Houston's got major issues. Tennessee's getting older. You don't know what's going to go on with Tannehill. I'm not sold on that young kid just yet. And then you got Derrick Henry. The Colts are picking at 4 right now. It's Chicago, the Texans, Arizona, and then the Colts at 4. And you're right. You start to, map, scratch off teams. Raiders, no liquidity. Washington, I thought maybe would have been the logical landing spot, 95. They hire Eric Bieniemy. You cater that offense towards him. I'm also wondering if people are looking at his health history and saying, look, he's got the frame like a Allen, like a Cam Newton. We know he's susceptible to injuries when he runs out of the pocket, or I don't know. I just think it's weird. It's fishy that teams are coming out. Maybe, and again, to my point, they're probably just saying, no, you're not getting $320 million guaranteed. And it was an aberration, a rarity that Haslam turned around and he did it. And then all the other owners pretty much are like, what are you doing? Like what he broke ranks when you really think about it, protocol, so to speak, because no one in their right mind is giving a quarterback that type of money. That's here you go. And then remember too, Burrow, Justin Herbert, they're going to be in line for more money.
For their extension. Yep.
Yeah. No, I don't think anyone in the league's willing to do that. Owners don't want to give quarterback guaranteed contracts.
No, not at all.
No,
Even though the players are all in the right to fight for it, because we know, right, these guys with their bodies on the line, 16 games to 17 games a season, high impact, like you give it to them. But like you said, the owners, they don't want to do it. And like you said, and going back to a point that you harping on earlier about him having an agent, he needed to have one in this spot, because an agent would have also told him not to step on that field this year without having a long-term deal done.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, that shows me that, the Ravens are like, hey man, if you think the grass is greener, that's exactly
see what you can get.
Right, because if they turn around, if they offer the exclusive tag instead, then they're saying, we want you into the mix. We still want you into the fold. But now,
right.
Or I'm eliminating Jovan's ability then to weigh other offers. But now, because of that, now you weigh these other offers. I mean, can you imagine a scenario where he sits out?
I mean, that would be crazy. But then if he sat out, right, they would have to force their hand. He would force their hand to do something, because you can't have that money tied up in a player not playing.
Nope.
But then that also might force a team to say, this is our chance now. Baltimore has no leverage. Now we can jump in and get him.
And you technically really don't need an agent for that. I mean, it's in your best interest to listen to people, but I can turn around and say, hey, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm telling you, this is what happens year in and year out when we're waiting for that one quarterback, that high price quarterback, that Hall of Fame quarterback. For years, it was Favre. What's he going to do? Then it turned out it was going to be Brady, and then we kind of knew where Peyton was going late in the career after he had the success with Denver. And then what I think what really turned everything around is Andrew Luck decided to retire. And you had that major domino effect as well. Now there's some reports that Phillip Rivers, I don't know how much legitimacy would consider coming out of retirement. And, you're talking about Tom Brady and his kids having a cat. And Tom Brady's already getting tired of being at home. He wants to come out of retirement. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't keep up with all this nonsense. And we haven't even hit April for the draft.
No. We haven't even hit free agency yet. We're still a week out.
Correct. Technically, we haven't. All right. Two more couple minutes before I let you get out of here. Where are you with this Ja Morant story? Do you think that the league will eventually intervene? I know the report came out that the investigation, quote, no wrongdoing, or I should say legal action will take place. But this as much as I do. The NBA is so overprotective of their image, like the NFL. And the last thing they want is, the optics of a player, right, waving a gun on IG, and they certainly, to take it to another extreme, let's call it the way it is, a young Black player with a lot of money who's the face of the franchise waving a gun. Let's just call it the way it is. They don't want that out there, because then it gives all the other goofballs, that ammunition where they say, well, see, this is the NBA. It's a bunch of punks and it's a bunch of thugs and blah, 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 blah. But do you believe they'll step in and suspend him?
I think so, especially I think they will after they do their investigation, because I think there's something in the CBA about carrying a weapon on a team, flight or plane or whatever, where there's like a suspension.
Correct. And $1 million and or a suspension. Yes. It's actually, I'm glad you brought it up. It's actually rule Section 9, firearms and other weapons. Whenever a player is physically present at the facility or venue, it goes on and on and on. Violation of Section 9A or Section 9B above shall be considered conduct prejudicial to the NBA under Article 35D of the NBA Constitution and bylaws. And that's also subject to the player disciplined by the NBA in accordance with such article. So, yeah, I mean, to me, if he gets suspended for the rest of the season, he basically just sabotaged the whole season, because 2 out of 3 becomes 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6 losses. And they just keep going, because if you look at the Western Conference right now, it's top heavy with one team, right? With
And then
Denver.
everybody else
Correct.
is all together. But maybe that's the wake up call he needs, right? Because if you spend him for the rest of the season, even if that suspension carries over with the maximum amount of games that he could get, it could be the wake up call saying like, hey, like your actions derailed your team from potentially making a deep playoff run and maybe somehow, getting into, the finals, even though that'd be crazy, but derailing them from getting somewhere because of your actions and your behavior. And that's what he needs, right? Because you don't want the other wake up call to be, something more serious, right? Or him going to jail or, anything else worse than that. So you hope that, that he learns from this. And like you said, the league, I think definitely will step in because they don't want to see this guy with so much talent. He's a face of a franchise, he's helping that market, right? That Memphis market, become, much must-see TV for what they do on the court. He has a sneaker coming out. So there's a lot of things going for him. And I don't think no one in this situation wants to see him, go to complete other different direction.
No, and it's a really good point that you highlight and illustrate because the NBA wants their marquee players on the floor, right? Because it's all about the revenue. It's all about the rating.
Right.
So speaking of which, I know there's a couple games on the docket tonight. I don't know if you have glossed over anything. I mean, nothing. I honestly, I really don't like these lines are just, you got two overblown lines in Boston and Portland. You got the Suns and the Thunder. I almost hit a 6-game parlay the other night, but instead of the Knicks friggin' covering, they had to hit a 3 and it was 2.5. And then of course, last night I'm like, I'll sprinkle a little Knicks on the money line. I'm going to keep riding. And then they spit the vid against friggin' Charlotte. So I'm cranky with that. But that being said, do you have a game or two or player prop that you like?
For me, like you said, this slate was very weird. A lot of short, lines, 2-3 points, which were kind of puzzling to me. But some things I like tonight, I like the over in that Clippers Raptors game, just because the Clippers defense has been really poor since the All-Star break. They're giving up like 130 plus points per game since the All-Star break. Like they're just not playing perimeter defense whatsoever. And I think that could benefit a team like Toronto, who they don't have the shooters, right? But they got guys like Van Fleet that can get hot, Gary Trent and Anunoby. I think that could be a high scoring game. So I like that there. I also like Kawhi Leonard over 2.5 3-pointers in this game. He's been shooting the ball really well from behind the arc. The Raptors have one of the worst 3-point defenses in the league this year. I think they're allowing teams to shoot 37.9% from three. Really bad. They're up there with the Spurs. Only the Spurs are worse at defending threes. So I like that one. And then, Devin Booker. I'm looking at Devin Booker tonight for his assist prop. I know it's juiced at like minus 150 for like over 5.5, but him and KD have been really good. The 2-man game between them is working. And it seems like he's almost become that de facto point guard. Like Chris Paul is there, but it's like it's starting to become the Devin Booker KD show. So I like, his over assists at 5.5. I also like his rebounds plus assist prop at 11.5. He's done really well with this number 2. And then I'll go after Jimmy Butler over 20.5 points. Game that Heat need to win. They need to win every game possible as they try to, get out of that playing spot and hopefully get that 6th seed, with the jumble of teams that are also there too. So just some of the plays I'm looking at tonight.
All right, we're going to see if we can squeeze you back on Friday. I want to do a little due diligence on the XFL so we can dive into some of these games. We'll say schedule pending. We know you're a busy man. We can get you on for 5 or 10. We'll bang something out. And then I kind of want to maybe start to look ahead into March Madness, just to kind of get maybe your idea of 3 or 4 teams that we can kind of keep an eye out for. UCLA had a major loss today. They lost one of their best defensive players, I think, to an injury. So they were one of my sleeper teams, them in USC. So we got the conference tournaments this week. We got the XFL. We got baseball around the corner. So we will definitely keep you busy. You don't have to worry about that.
Yes, we got baseball, and we got the World Baseball Classic going
Yeah,
on
there you
right
go.
now.
Well, we got a
So
little WBC. We can get into that as well, and I don't have a problem with that. What's going on in DR and Puerto Rico and Latin America, we're good with that. He is Jovan Alford at Jovan 10, content producer, Sporting News. Check him out online. Also, Total Sports Live. You got a new pod dropping this week with that?
no, but we did do a pod last week. Me and Harrison broke down the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. We kind of rolled out our own top 10.
Okay.
And talked about that and broke down some of the quarterbacks we like, Dorian Robinson out of UCLA, Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. So really, really cool pod that we did last week. Nice. So they can check that out right now.
All right. Awesome, man. Well, listen, I always appreciate you. So I have to brush up on my XFL for later on. And then we will do it again as always, brother. I appreciate you jumping on BYP.
Hey, no problem.
All right.